when the actual first bombs were exploded there.
All personnel had to be 6 miles away from the explosion site and were told to turn their backs to the explosion.
It was like somebody run a heater over his back, and he had to flinch from the heat from the blast.
The mighty power of the atom is unleashed.
And then they had to put their hands over their eyes to make sure that the flash never affected them, because it can blind you. But he could see all his finger bones through his eyes. The flash came right through him like an X-ray. And then about 10 seconds later, the sound came. Much later, the shock wave hit him and nearly knocked him over.
Whilst the tests ranged in size from 1.4 kilotons to 26.6 kilotons, the last of the 7 explosions, codenamed Taranaki, was the largest. Larger than the atomic bombs that hit Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945 at the end of World War II.
Because they were experimental bombs in testing phase, they were very dirty radiologically. So the radiation done huge damage as well.
For the local Aboriginal families, their home had become the atomic test site. Most of the indigenous people living in the area had been moved on by authorities, but many did not avoid the radioactive fallout.
There was no place that I know of, reading all the literature around the world from various sources, that had so much plutonium in such one area. We know plutonium is highly dangerous. It's one of those long-lived, not the longest-lived isotope. It is one of the long-lived, highly dangerous ones.
The cleanup operation over the years has been extensive. However, there is still much debate about how safe the area is.
Well, they cleaned up the immediate area where the actual contamination, the blast took place. I could go back there now and I'd feel quite safe, because they took off up to a metre of earth, in some places more than a metre, and took it away and buried it in a deep trench. But for the first 90 miles, it's still quite heavily contaminated with plutonium just laying on the surface. And that can still blow away under adverse weather conditions. So realistically, it was a huge amount in an area that lasts to this day and will for another 240,000 years.
The Australian government, declaring the site safe, has returned the land to the traditional owners who are setting up the former nuclear test site as a tourism centre. It's an opportunity to maintain the history of what happened in these lands. There are still warning signs, and there are many who would never step foot near Maralinga. But for the curious, this is a chance to see a remote destination where atomic bombs were exploded with allegedly little regard to the effect on those who worked and lived at the site. Dangerous or not, would you take the risk? We are ranking the 72 most dangerous places to live and selecting 3 of the worst for our final countdown. Kiribati is high on the list. In the foreseeable future, this country is at risk of disappearing below rising sea levels. It's a dire warning to the rest of the world. But will the world take heed and help? It is what is at the heart of Varanasi that puts it into contention. The purity of their spirituality inadvertently leads them to toxicity. And finally, risking the thrill of mountain life is a winter lifestyle for millions of people worldwide. But for the rescue crews in the Rocky Mountains, this lifestyle can quickly become overwhelmingly devastating. Our world can be very dangerous. Seldom can we predict what will happen next. deceiving. First up, we explore an incredible waterway, once the lifeline of a community, but now slowly destroying those who need it most. Rivers, the arteries that sustain ecosystems, the lifeline of communities big and small the world over, generating food, supplying irrigation for crops and water for drinking, providing transport routes for commerce. Their currents can even be harnessed for power. But as the wheels of industrialization have turned, this has become one of mankind's most popular uses for rivers: pipelines to flush out our waste. Java, Indonesia's most populated island. 10 million Indonesians live in the nation's capital, Jakarta, and 80 kilometers to the east of this crowded city is the Citarum River. Could you live next to the dirtiest river on the planet?
When I was photographing in Bandung, I crossed many times small rivers, and I noticed that old people were throwing their garbage in that rivers. And I was wondering at that time, where is all that garbage going to?
Flowing north around 300 kilometers before meeting the Java Sea, the river is the source of 80% of Jakarta's water supply and is the foundation of West Java's agriculture and food production. But since the rise of industry in the 1980s, the marine life here is long gone.
The garbage you can see floating is one thing, but then there is also the hundreds clothing factories around Bandung who pollute the river with their dyes.
Years of unregulated disposal of waste has completely decimated the livelihood of the local fishermen.
People who used to be fishermen were now fishing for garbage, plastic, foam, to have an income.
Their families swim, bathe, wash their clothes, and even drink from the river.
People cannot use the water from the wells anymore. Children get sick, they get skin diseases, rashes, because the water is too dirty, too poison.
A multi-million-dollar cleanup and education campaign is underway. The hope is that the Citarum River will prove to be as resilient as its people, and once again become a pristine waterway filled with marine life.
Cleaning up Citarum River will not be an easy task, but it has to be done.
Each danger zone featured in 72 dangerous places will be ranked according to lifestyle, potential threat, what help is available, and whether you will survive. Survival and fear are different for everyone. Will your top 10 dangerous places match ours? Citarum River, although dire, is on the up, so it's taking the rank of number 43. But coming in at number 10 is the most contaminated site in the Southern Hemisphere.
Well, the town doesn't exist. Whitney no longer exists as a town site. That town site status was removed, and we are just a little dotted line on the map.
That little dotted line goes through some of the most picturesque landscapes on Earth.
It was a different world. I loved it up here. The colours, the ghost gums, red rock, blue skies.
But looks can kill.
Don't go. It is simply not worth your life.
In the heart of the Pilbara, Australia, lies the decrepit, de-gazetted Whitney. Once a vibrant town with so much hope, now it has been claimed by Blue Death. And it's all because of a natural mineral that is abundant in the northern region of Western Australia. For 30 years, blue asbestos was mined from the iron-stained cliffs in Australia's northwest Pilbara. Thousands of residents, workers, and tourists who pass through the former